Being with us on this historic day. And Stephanie, we will start with roll call.
Alden Vandenbrink.
Present.
Doug Monger.
Here.
John Ely. Kathleen Curry.
Here.
Kathy Chandler Henry.
Here.
Mark Catlin.
Here.
Mark Grover.
Here.
Martha Whitmore.
I believe Director Whitmore may just be a few minutes late.
Mike Richard.
Here.
Reby Hazard.
Here.
Scott McGinnis.
Here.
Stan Winery.
Here.
Steve Beckley.
Here.
Taylor Haas. Tom Gray.
And we do have Director Whitmore with us now. All right. We have two items on our agenda this afternoon at this special meeting. The first is a proposed approval of purchase and sale agreement with Public Service Company of Colorado. And the second is a proposed approval of a community funding partnership fund grant for Colorado River District contribution to the purchase and sale agreement. So, General Manager Andy Mueller, will you lead us through item one?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, we sent a memo out on December the 14th discussing these two actions, but well, we've been talking about this potential acquisition for about 85 years. I think only a few of you have been on board that long. But I do want to just say we're very excited about this. It's been an effort by the River District and our colleagues on the Western Slope. 18 or 19 other entities have worked extremely hard to get this done. And over the last 2 years, we really found a willing partner in Xcel Energy. They stepped up and negotiated this purchase and sale agreement. The key is that as the purchase and sale agreement says, we're contracting to purchase both rights, the senior and the junior right at Shoshone, for a total of 1,405 CFS. It is currently decreed for hydropower purposes and is non-consumptive. As many of you are aware, it's responsible due to its senior status and the volume of that call for allowing nature to work and gravity to work and flow the water westward down the Colorado River and keep the economies from Grand County to Mesa County whole, keep the river wet, keep our recreational and fishing economies whole, keep our agriculture in with water. It really props up the 15-mile reach in the Upper Colorado Endangered Fish Recovery Program. Shoshone is a workhorse, and it's been identified by this district and our fellow West Slopers. Literally, I make the joke about 85 years, but 85 years ago, Senate Document 80 was passed as part of the Colorado Big Thompson Project, and it referenced the importance of keeping these exact flows at the location of the Shoshone Power Plant. The way our water rights system works, you have to have a beneficial use to continue that call. And so long as Xcel maintains the plant, that's great, but it's in a really precarious situation. It's old, it may not be there forever. And the West Slope, and I think the state of Colorado as a whole, will truly benefit from the acquisition of this right. And then over the next 3 or 4 years, we will go through a process to, in a number of arenas, to change that water right and add the beneficial use as an alternative beneficial use of the in-stream flow. An in-stream flow with the exact same priority, with hopefully the exact same volume of water on the same dates that water right has been called throughout history. The idea being to make sure that call stays on the river because of all the benefits it brings both above and below the stream. It is critical for us to recognize we've got a lot of work to do after we sign this agreement negotiating that in-stream flow agreement with the CWCB staff and board, the change case, which will involve negotiations or the continuation of negotiations with a number of parties, both east and west of the divide. After the successful conclusion of that, we just have to provide evidence that we've raised the purchase price, $98.5 million. And then at that point, Public Service Company of Colorado, a subsidiary of Xcel Energy, will go into the Public Utilities Commission seeking approval to sell the asset and be told how they need to dispose of the gains on sale. At the successful conclusion of that process, we will close on the transaction, and the West Slope will own the water right. We will have a joint arrangement with the CWCB so that they can call the in-stream flow in a mandatory way. And I know many of you have seen the press. We're in the middle of working out the exact arrangement as to how that call works with the CWCB and what that arrangement is. We believe that good faith negotiations will lead to exactly what we need. Keep in mind, it is the first contingency in the contract that we will arrive at a satisfactory agreement with the CWCB. Again, the discussions with the staff have been fantastic. They're very supportive and very excited about this. We have a good partner in the CWCB on this issue. We believe that we'll work through those details and the big issues with them. It is a really exciting time. I will just tell you that this lift has been huge on the entire staff at the River District. We have a great team who have worked overtime throughout this negotiation process, long before I was even at the district. And today, the team that's working on it benefits from the historic work as well as their current work. But it has touched on every department at the district, and every person at the district has helped in this lift. Peter, I don't know if you want to hit on anything else related to purchase and sale.
Well, I can certainly walk through the primary elements of the purchase and sale agreement. I won't go through each line of the 20+ pages of the agreement, because I know folks are anxious for some other things. I did want to mention that Andy had talked about folks that had worked on this before. I see Dan Birch is present here today. I wanted to thank Dan for his good efforts, really heroic, I won't be able to say that word, significant efforts over the years to working with Xcel. And Eric Kuhn, who's not able to be here today, also played a role, as did Dave Merritt, who just walked in the door. And we thank and appreciate all of their efforts historically to help us get to this point. The purchase and sale agreement, I've reviewed it. Well, we drafted it, and with Xcel's assistance as well, and it accurately reflects what Andy has portrayed to you. It's a total cost to the River District of $99 million. The effective date, even though we'll be signing that today, if the board so approves it, will be January 1 of 2024. It's that $99 million equates to the $98.5 million purchase price, plus $500,000 in prepayment transaction costs for Xcel. They are was a necessary element of the deals with respect to their obligations under the Public Utilities Commission. The River District will pay upfront, assuming that, again, we have approval today, within 10 days of the effective date, a total of $1 million, which would be that consist of the $500,000 of prepayment of transaction costs plus a $500,000 deposit. And that $1 million, it's important to note, we have every reason to believe in good faith that we will eventually get to the end of the line on this and close, and you know, the River District's pledge of money will go hard at that time, and the other funding partners will as well. But it's important to note that none of the money, except for that potentially up to that 1 million, goes hard immediately. Just the deposit, and in certain circumstances, depending upon the cause of the termination, if the agreement were to be terminated, which we hope it's not, but if it were to be terminated, we would get a refund of that $500,000 deposit and any unspent portion of the prepayment of the transaction cost. So that's the 1 million that we will have to pay within 10 days of January 1. Andy mentioned the 4 preconditions to closing. The in-stream flow agreement with the Water Conservation Board. We really do view the state of Colorado and the Colorado Water Conservation Board as a key partner, a critical partner with the River District and our West Slope Coalition in this process. Once we get that agreement done, we will go forward with the Water Conservation Board and Public Service Company, file a joint application in Water Court to change the water right to include the in-stream flow purposes, which will be a huge event and a big important component of the whole transaction, obviously. But because the water right is non-consumptive, it takes a lot of the complication of a normal change of water rights out of the picture. And not to say it's the simplest thing in the world. There are things that we'll have to address in the water court process, but we don't have to deal with return flows and all the sorts of things that normally go along with a change of water rights case. Then once that is done, we will indicate our hopefully the funding gets lined up and we get the PUC process that Xcel as the publicly regulated utility has to go through with respect to the disposition of the gains from the sale. That said, those are the highlights of the purchase and sale agreement. Really the pertinent points for the board. There's a lot of boilerplate in there, as there would be with any purchase and sale agreement, but I'm happy to discuss any questions that the board might have about that. They're consistent with our prior discussions with the board on this transaction.
Thank you, Peter. Comments, Director McGinnis?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to talk to Peter ahead of time, so I resolved a number of the questions I had, but one I overlooked, Peter, was on page 7 of the purchase agreement, is the removal or modify the bidding rights granted to Denver in the relaxation agreement. So I'm curious why we don't just remove it. What is meant by modification? Is there an intent to modify some kind of right to the Denver Water Board or the City of County Denver?
That might just be an artifact of drafting. I anticipate that consistent with the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement provisions that relate to Shoshone and making the Shoshone call permanent, the Shoshone flows permanent, that as an element of that, the River District will commit to make a corresponding agreement that Denver Water currently has with Xcel Energy to reduce the call in certain dire drought situations for a limited period of time in the spring and the rising limb of the hydrograph. We would agree to make that permanent with respect to any future in-stream flow use. When we do that and make that agreement that Denver benefits from, and it's not only Denver that benefits, it's all water users that are upstream in those severe drought conditions. Then Denver will, as provided in the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement, effectively terminate that right of participation in the sale. So it's a quid pro quo that was negotiated in the CRCA, and that language in the agreement simply implements that on a more formal basis.
And then I thought, because Andy was so excited about this, that you were going to get him to sign as a personal guarantor on the promissory note. I see your note on there. Anyway, Madam Chair, at some point too, I think we have some guests. By the way, so many guests today from elected office. We have Russ George back here, and so many people have been involved in this for so much time. But there are some people new visitors we have here. If we could just get a brief description of, because you say the water touches all 4 corners of the state, these benefits, but the 15-mile reach. the critical aspect of that 15-mile reach, well covered in our documents and everything, but I thought it'd be helpful if people
Sure.
understand why everybody benefits on that 15-mile reach.
Sure, so the 15-mile reach is a section of the Colorado River that runs from the diversion dam of the Grand Valley Irrigation Company down in Grand Junction, or just in Palisades, I guess, down 15 miles to the confluence of the Colorado and Gunnison rivers. And that is designated critical habitat for 4 endangered or threatened fish species. And for years, we've had in place what we call the 15-mile reach programmatic biological opinion, or PBO. And as part of the Colorado River Endangered Fish Recovery Program, that PBO and the recovery program provides compliance for endangered fish, federal endangered fish compliance for any water project in the main stem of the Colorado, in the basin. So whether you are, a HOA, or maybe a new golf course, or a irrigation district that needs to do work on a head gate, where you would otherwise have a federal action where you needed to come in and get compliance under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act, which can be a very significant and very contentious and expensive process. The 15-mile reach PBO and recovery program provides coverage for you. And it also provides coverage for any other project, whether it's a Trans Mountain project, such as Denver's enlargement of Gross Reservoir, or the Chimney Hollow Windy Gap Firming project. All of these major significant water development projects that have occurred in our basin in the main stem of the Colorado River over the last 30 or 40 years, I can't count quite, but have been covered by, effectively, I don't want to say it's a rubber stamp, but it's close to it, and that provides their Endangered Species Act coverage. If the Shoshone water rights, if the call and the historical flow regime that was created by the Shoshone water rights goes away, the water that is now currently called down because of that senior call of the non-consumptive hydropower right, it would be diverted in priority, just by virtue of Colorado's priority system and geography, by upstream junior water rights. Many, but not all of them, Trans Mountain rights and the 100% consumptive of the hill. And without those flows, the 15-mile reach PBO would crater. It would no longer be valid, and I'm quite confident that the Fish and Wildlife Service, the recovery program, would find it to be invalid. There's also, we could to get a little bit too much into the weeds, an important provision of an old water rights case called the Orchard Mesa Check case, whereby water users in the Grand Valley kept their finger on the trigger of the Shoshone water rights, if you will, and have the ability, if the water right is not being exercised and those flows are not being called down as they have historically, they essentially have a bottom card in the house of cards that is the 15-mile reach PBO that they could pull and tank that, and that would be terrible for the whole state. The whole state would suffer immensely. We've been, the Colorado River Endangered Fish Program has been incredibly successful, in many ways a victim of its own success because people don't know so much about it. But without it in place, we would be in a situation, I believe, like some of the water users and land interests in the Klamath Basin, where you hear people are shut off and get 0% water allocation. So very firmly believe that Shoshone is absolutely critical. Maintenance of these flows that we're talking about today, 100% critical to maintenance of that 15-mile reach PBO. I hope that's responsive.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Right. Well, with that, I'll take a motion, and I will call on Director Mike Richard from Grand County, who represents the headwaters of the Colorado River.
At this time, Madam Chair, I would recommend that we authorize execution of the sale and purchase agreement with Public Service Company of Colorado.
Right, and looking for a second, Director McGinnis, who's the
I second.
westernmost county, Mesa.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, I second the motion.
All right, all those in favor of approving the purchase and sale agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up on our agenda is a discussion of approval of a community funding partnership grant to help fund this purchase. Amy?
Thank you, Madam Chair and the board. I'll be discussing our second action item for the board, in which we recommend a $20 million contribution in the form of a grant from the Community Funding Partnership to satisfy the River District's funding portion for the acquisition of the Shoshone water rights. And this action item has two components, like Peter mentioned. The first is that we request that the board authorize a current expenditure of $1 million to be used for the transaction costs and a deposit. And the remaining $19 million of the requested funding commitment will be subject to available revenue and future appropriations by the board of directors. And so as you've heard, this project aligns with the River District mission and our goals with the Community Funding Partnership with a multitude of benefits, including ecosystem benefits, both upstream and downstream from the Shoshone Power Plant, critical stream flow support for the Upper Colorado River Recovery Program and Endangered Species Act compliance that we discussed with the importance of the 15-mile reach. It also helps support critical flow targets for the Upper Colorado River Wild and Scenic Alternative Management Plan. It provides water quality benefits to towns that rely on the Colorado River for source drinking water, including towns like Newcastle, Rifle, Palisade, Clifton, and the greater Grand Junction area served by Ute Water Conservancy District. It provides additional water security and clean water for irrigation in Colorado's agricultural economy, and promotes economic development for the recreation economy that exists on Colorado's main stem. And also included in your packet are over 20 letters of support from coalition members and additional environmental and recreational-based organizations. And as you can see, many of them are here today to be a part of this event. So I want to talk a little bit about the funding strategy for the acquisition of the purchase price and how our request for the Community Funding Partnership fits in. The funding strategy includes a diverse partnership across local, state, and federal funds, and includes a timely convergence of many historic funding opportunities that exist to realize this closing of the acquisition. So the funding strategy includes a strong local funding approach with the $20 million request that's before you today, and also an anticipated $10 million contribution distributed across the West Slope Coalition partners. It also includes a state request that we've made to the Colorado Water Conservation Board of $20 million that's fully matched by the Colorado River District's proposed contribution. We submitted an application in August of this year to be considered for the 2024 Water Projects Bill next legislative session, and we expect the state to act on that request at their January board meeting on the 29th and 30th. And the final component is an anticipated $49 million request to the Bureau of Reclamation that's made possible through $4 billion that was authorized through the Inflation Reduction Act for drought mitigation purposes. Specifically to our CFP fund projections, this board and staff has recognized the need to support large-scale legacy efforts, and we have made additional contributions with general fund transfers every year beginning in 2021, which was most recently accelerated with an additional general fund transfer of $3.7 million authorized by this board in 2024. And looking at our future revenue projections, we believe our general fund will continue to support additional transfers in the range of $3.5 to $3.7 million in future years. And so using these projections, we feel confident that we're well positioned to maintain our request of $20 million for this acquisition, while still maintaining the ability to award grants across our district, specifically in the Gunnison, Iñapa, White Stream Basins, and Pitkin County, of at least $3 million, which is an increase above the average that we've provided awards over the last 3 years of the program. And as this board knows, the community funding partnership includes equity targets on both a geographic and categorical basis. And so pending this board action, we expect as staff to continue engaging with the board on maintaining those equity targets leading up to the closing of this transaction by the end of 2027. And so again, using our fund projections, we do believe we'll be able to continue to make grant awards across the district to be able to maintain those equity targets across these years. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions along with our leadership.
If I may add just one thing, and I think most of the members of the board and the members of the public present are aware of this, but our district would not have been in a position to even have staff recommend to you a $20 million contribution without the work of this board and actually almost every single person in this room who helped approve ballot measure 7A back in 2020. It is our taxpayers who stepped up and have contributed money and do contribute money every year, and the voters that approved that, to whom we owe our position to be able to do this. And I just want to recognize that it is a privilege to be able to make this step forward, but it is because of our taxpayers that we're able to do so.
Thank you, that's a great addition, and I think this is exactly what taxpayers had in mind when they supported the River District, is this security on the western slope for River District counties. Questions for Amy or Andy or Peter on the funding piece? Amy, thanks for a good presentation. We'll take a motion.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the staff recommendation.
All right, we have a motion by Director Catlin.
I'll second the motion.
Second from Director Beckley. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion is approved. Thank you all very much. Thanks for being here in person and online to take place in this historic moment. And several of folks have mentioned the people in the audience who've helped us here over the many years, including some top secret meetings in 2014 that kind of kicked off the current effort, but it's been going on long before that. So we will adjourn, and we are meeting again at 2:30. Director McGinnis.
Very briefly, Madam Chair, and that is recognition of the staff and my fellow board members, but all of us, but the staff has done extensive work on this in addition to the load we have as a result of the drought and a lot of other things. But to the staff, each and every one of them are very dedicated to this, and obviously the people here, we could just spend the whole day at accolades, but special to the staff. And I also should point out for our audience, while we don't have a lot of questions on those two very important milestone motions, we've had extensive conversations as a board, and this is kind of the formality, but I didn't want you to get the impression, wow, they're going to spend $98 million on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. But let's give a round of applause for everyone.
And just for everybody's information, at 2:30 we will have